What is up, my hunting brothers and sisters? It's been a long time since I've done like a product review or any of that type on my YouTube channel. So this week, we're gonna sit down with an exciting new product that I've got. And it's not really hunting related, but it's more about your video work. And that is the new Insta360 ONE R, the twin pack. This is basically a modular system like your GoPro action camera and also a 360 camera. So we're gonna unbox it. We're gonna take it out and show you its typical uses, its pros and cons, and maybe ways that we can use it hunting as well this year. So sit tight and enjoy. All right, so what is this thing? Real quick, basically it's an action camera with a 360 module. It's a modular camera system. So right now, if I snap the battery on this thing, like so, you can think of this as your typical GoPro style action camera. If I click the battery off, this thing quickly converts, and it's set up out of the box fashion here. It actually has a touch screen on the back, so you can see what's going on. It actually gives you the picture. You can pop it apart, and you can flip the camera module over, and now the screen can be on the front, so you could actually do like vlogging, selfie type stuff once you snap the battery back on. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. This would be your 4K typical setup. The beauty of this thing, though, is the 360 module as well. So basically what you've got here is you got two spherical lenses, one on each side, and it pops into this section, which, again, this is the brain. Where the screen's at, that's the brain of the whole thing. So you can clip the battery on this thing, and all of a sudden you've converted into an action camera. So supposedly, from everything I've seen online, there's a stitching line that runs around this thing, and then in here through the AI it stitches it so you get a uniform picture. So anyway, so this is kind of cool. It's supposed to be great image stabilization. Comes with a little case here that the whole thing slides into. Also comes with, well, it didn't come with, I bought this separate, a selfie stick that if you extend it out, I think it's about 4 feet long or so. Supposedly it stitches this out, so when you're holding it, you can actually make the camera feel like it's, or look like it's floating. So I don't know, I'm interested to see what this thing will do. It's relatively new. It came out right around the first of the year-ish, I think, of 2020, and here we are late February of 2020. And so you know, I know there's been some firmware updates and everything, so we'll get it all updated. And I think my daughter and I are going to go skiing in the next couple days, and so we're going to take it along. That's what everybody seems to be posting videos of. But I'm going to come up with some ideas of how I can use this in, say, a hunting situation. Sit tight. Let's see what the footage from this thing looks like. Alright, so here we are 1 week or so later of playing with the Insta360 ONE R, and you just saw a bunch of footage with it. I'm pretty impressed with this thing. It's not perfect, but I'm really impressed with it. It did a lot of things really, really well. I really love the 360 module. I mean, some edits, I played with some of the niche or the little fancy gizmo type things that you can do with it, the tiny planet, you know, and all that. And I don't know that I'm going to use a lot of those long term, but they're fun to play with initially just to see how you can reframe and everything. But the possibilities for this thing, I really feel like are limitless. I mean, obviously I took it skiing, and I think that like skiing was made for this camera, or this camera was made for skiing. I don't know, because it absolutely is phenomenal in that type of setting. I wish I was a really good snowboarder or skier and do some pretty cool stuff, but a lot of the videos I've seen of the guys who are real good with them are laying down some amazing footage. So there are all kinds of possibilities with this thing. I use the 4K some as well. I didn't play with it quite as much, but I'm very impressed with it. The footage is absolutely phenomenal, on par with the GoPro Hero 8 Black, in my opinion, which I'm going to be doing a side-by-side on these and some other action cameras I own as well. And so I thought it was awesome. I think it's really great footage. I think there's a lot to love about this camera system. I like the touch interface on this thing. It's pretty easy once you get figure out where things are at to navigate. It's pretty darn impressive. The whole thing is. You know, what don't I like necessarily about the camera? There's really not a lot to not like about it. One thing that I definitely would like to see Insta360 do is provide a looping record. So being able to record, say, in 10 or 20-minute loops where it records over itself, just like, say, the GoPros and some of the other action cameras do. But I think that's something that could be addressed in a firmware update. I know that they're doing firmware updates like constantly as they tweak these things. I've reached out to them but not heard back from them. So, you know, definitely that would be one thing that I would like to see improved. Getting in and out of the little side access door here for the SD card, especially with the case on, it's a little tough, but it's really not a big deal breaker, you know, at that. Boot up time, that would be one thing that definitely can be improved. I hunt, so a lot of times I need my cameras to boot up really quick, and you're going to see I'm going to power this on, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So about 7 to 8 seconds, and it's ready to record. When you hit record, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So about 5 seconds before it's actually recording. So you got to boot up for 7 or 8 seconds, then another 5 seconds before recording time works, you know, kicks in. So that again, I think that probably could be addressed in a firmware update. I've also reached out to them on that. So those are probably my biggest gripes about the camera, but beyond that, it's pretty amazing. The other thing that's so amazing about this camera is the app. And I'm not an Apple guy at all. I'm an Android guy, but I do have an iPad mini here because the Android app system is very limited on what devices it works for on this. But the iOS system works on most every Apple device. They also have a desktop program. The desktop program isn't quite as powerful. The app, which is so cool, and the interface is really easy once you play with it for about 4 or 5 videos. It took me a few videos to figure it out. But I mean, it tracks, you can move around, you hit play. For example, I'm going to scroll up here, like if I wanted it to track an individual, say, all I got to do is hold down on them, and then it sits there and it tracks the individual. I mean, it's absolutely is amazing, the stuff that this thing does. And you can reposition, you can change up your aspect ratios and all that. So the app is absolutely incredible. I will tell you that the one downside to using it via app is it transfers all the video files from the camera over to the app wirelessly through Wi-Fi connection. And I'm finding for every minute of video, it takes probably 45 seconds of transfer. So if you got a half an hour video, I mean, it's going to take you, say, 20 some minutes probably to transfer it all over. Excuse me. So anyway, so that's a little bit slower. Working on a computer, I can pull out the SD card and dump the files in right away. Working on the computer, again, it doesn't have quite the power, but it does export at a higher bit rate, which in theory, and I've not compared them side by side, but you should get a little bit better outputs video. So anyway, so that's what I kind of like about the whole thing, and a couple things I dislike. They sent me, after the unboxing, they sent me these lens covers that I had ordered for the 360. I've heard guys say that you should use these like in a rain type situation because it keeps the water away from the lens so it doesn't blur your image. This thing's waterproof, but you want to keep the water away from the lens. And they just basically, there's a little hinge point here, so they snap on and then they flip up and you got one on each side. So it's kind of cool. They do come with this little pouch that's got 2 different sleeves inside of it, so they can be protected. I think that's pretty cool. So, you know, again, so, and, you know, it comes with this little rubber case, so when you're carrying it around, you don't scratch it up. So how am I, as a hunter, going to use this thing? Because you can't ski all year long. I wish I could. I enjoy it. But probably a couple situations. One, I like to turkey hunt a lot. I can set cameras out in the decoys. I may try that, especially if we get into a looping situation, if they make that addition where I can let it run. So I got a couple options. You could put it on, this one's, they sell this, Insta does, but this one's not theirs. But basically I could put it on the selfie stick, and basically it's like a tripod essentially. So you could set it out there, you could extend it up or down as much as you wanted to, and then it's going to stitch all this out, and you could get a really unique perspective of, say, a turkey coming in the decoys. You could use it goose hunting. If you knew a spot where deer were coming, you could set it out there if that's what you wanted to do. Another way I could probably do this, and I use these a lot for, say, my GoPro type cameras when I set them out in the decoys, is one of these little Joby tripods. It's got the GoPro type of adapter, which I could unthread this off and put it on, and then set it out there in the decoys as well. You know, these are kind of wonderful because they're so flexible, but they sit low to the ground. Cool part about this 360 though is it's got a gyroscope in it, so I don't have to worry about, it self-levels. I don't have to worry about getting out there and this thing being all, you know, out of balance, where when I use a regular GoPro I gotta be really careful, you know, get it all level and all that, or even if I had the action camera mod on I'd have to. But with this, it's got a gyroscope in the 360, so it's going to come out level no matter what. It's absolutely amazing technology. Another way I'd probably use this, probably the better way I'd use this would be to mount it with my camera system. And I've got a myriad of cages I use on my mirrorless cameras. So I would probably put, say, this cage on. It's got a bunch of different mounting options through some of the different GoPro style attachments. You know, I might mount it up here or on the side or something like that. And then I would have that perspective of while I'm filming, say, a deer or whatever coming in, and me getting my bow, this would be capturing all that, and I don't have to worry about, well, I turned the camera and now my action camera is not facing me anymore because the 360 is going to pick it up all the way. It's probably the more likely way I'll do it, especially if we don't get a looping feature or the boot up remains slow long term. So some of that's just going to be long term, so we'll see. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this whole thing. I did mount it on my bow, as you saw in some of the footage. That was pretty cool. I was really impressed because every time you shoot a bow, there's slight vibrations. The newer bows are pretty, you know, vibration free, but there are, especially one time I ran the selfie stick way up in the air and it wasn't up there. You know, it was moving, but you really didn't see much of that on the footage. So that was just a unique way to do it. You could put them, you can mount it on a shotgun. There's all kinds of different ways. So yeah, that's kind of my take on this camera. I don't know. I really don't think that you can go wrong buying one of these. You know, if you already have an action camera and you don't need another action camera, then maybe you pick up just the 360 and not the twin back. If you have a 360 camera already and you want an action camera, maybe just buy it as the action. It's a great action camera. But if you are in need of a new action camera, maybe you never had one or time to upgrade, and you want to do the 360, man, this thing is an awesome combination with the ability to swap these modules out quickly and efficiently. It's just a heck of a setup that really, in my opinion, is somewhat future-proof because, again, this is the brains on this side. And so they have a 1-inch module coming out, which has a 1-inch sensor, so you should, in theory, get better images. They could, at some point in time, totally revamp the brains behind this thing, and your lenses work with it. Maybe they end up doing, I've heard that they're going to do, or they got in the works, extended batteries that are deeper. There's just, I really think that the possibilities with this camera are pretty much limitless right now. So I think it's an exciting piece of equipment as we go into 2020. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this little review video I did. I hope it's different than some of the others that are out there. Again, I'm a hunter, so hopefully this gears towards hunting and what you can do, and maybe it unlocks potentials and ideas for your setup. So anyway, with that, God bless. Be safe out there when you're hunting this year or going out and just filming. And man, remember, just keep creating. Create more content. You can't create enough. Be original. And I'd encourage you to pick one of these things up. As always, it's a new day in the outdoors.